The bouquet arrived on a Tuesday, peonies, 6 of them. Pale pink with darker streaks toward the center, like someone had taken a watercolor brush to each petal. I'd placed them on the kitchen counter, next to the stack of second-grade math worksheets I'd been correcting. The receipt was still attached to the brown craft paper, $42.95 from Evelyn's Blooms, a small extravagance Daniel rarely indulged in. "These are lovely," I said when he came home, gesturing toward the flowers while grading Mateo's creative but incorrect multiplication tables. "What's the occasion?" Daniel paused before answering, that infinitesimal delay I'd learned to categorize in my mental teacher's rubric of truthfulness. The kind I noticed when Lily claimed her goldfish ate her homework, or when Josh insisted he hadn't taken Amara's markers. Just because. "You've been working hard." His smile didn't quite reach the furrow between his eyebrows. I nodded, adding another check mark to a correct answer. 7 times 8 is 56. "Good job, Madison. I needed something nice after the call with Dr. Hendricks yesterday." I watched him from the corner of my eye, waiting for the recognition, the shared burden. Our 3rd failed round of IVF. $18,000 of hope and disappointment. Right. Of course. He kissed the top of my head, his lips barely grazing my hair. "I'm going to shower." The familiar sound of the bathroom fan humming through the wall of our condo. Water pressure dropping slightly when he turned the shower knob to hot, then cold, then hot again. His strange ritual. The scrape of the shower curtain rings against the rod. The predictable routine of a 9-year marriage. I turned back to my grading, but the peonies drew my attention. Something about the handwriting on the receipt. The slight leftward slant of the E in Evelyn's. I'd seen it before recently. On last month's credit card statement, another charge from the same florist. But I hadn't received any flowers in April. My classroom is all primary colors and controlled chaos. 23 7-year-olds, each with their own constellation of needs and capabilities. The constant of my days. I've arranged their desks in groups of 4. My little learning pods, with names like explorers, dreamers, inventors, and voyagers. It's Wednesday, and Wednesday means vocabulary building and silent reading time. "Ms. Linden, how do you spell suspicious?" Zoe asked, her pencil hovering over her notebook. "That's a strong word, Zoe. Are you writing a mystery story?" She nodded, pigtails bouncing. "Suspicious. I spelled slowly, watching her form each letter with careful determination. "And what does it mean exactly?" she asked, looking up through thick-framed glasses. "It means noticing that your husband's laptop has been password protected for the first time in your marriage. It means questioning why he's been coming home later on Thursdays. It means wondering about the second florist charge when the flowers from Tuesday are still fresh on your counter. It means you think something might be wrong, but you're not sure yet," I said instead. "You need evidence." The classroom phone rang, the distinctive double ring that meant the front office. I excused myself to answer it, turning my back to the class. "Ms. Linden," Principal Watkins's voice crackled through the receiver. "Your sister called. She said it's urgent but not an emergency. She asked if you could call her back during your lunch break." My sister, Nora. The one who'd moved to the same neighborhood 6 months ago to be closer after years of living across the country. Who suddenly had so much in common with Daniel. Who organized dinner parties where they discussed books I hadn't read and podcasts I didn't have time to listen to. "Thank you. I'll call her." I hung up and turned back to 23 curious faces. "Everything okay, Ms. Linden?" asked Marcus, always the most perceptive of my students. "Just fine," I replied with the smile I'd perfected for parent-teacher conferences when discussing areas for growth. Now, who wants to share their vocabulary sentences? I didn't call Nora during lunch. Instead, I opened the banking app on my phone, scrolling through recent transactions on our joint account. The florist charges $42.95 on Tuesday, $42.95 on April 17th, identical. There were other patterns, too. Coffee shop charges at Courier Coffee in the Pearl District, where neither Daniel nor I worked. A restaurant I'd never been to, Ardent Table, 3 times in the past month. the evidence collected in neat digital rows, each transaction a breadcrumb. My finger hovered over the text message icon next to Daniel's name. What would I even say? Are you having an affair with my sister? The thought was so absurd, so cliché, I almost laughed in the empty teacher's lounge. Instead, I closed the app and opened my lunch container. Turkey sandwich on wheat. Baby carrots? An apple? The same lunch I'd packed for the past 3 years, ever since we started financially preparing for a child. A child who remained theoretical, whose nursery was still our home office, whose college fund sat untouched in a high-yield savings account. I bit into my sandwich and tried to focus on my afternoon lesson plan. Proper nouns versus common nouns. The building blocks of language while my life's foundations trembled. That evening, I arrived home before Daniel. Our condo was silent in the way that amplifies small sounds. The refrigerator's hum, the distant traffic 17 floors below, the neighbor's muffled television through the wall. I set my tote bag of ungraded papers by the door and went straight to Daniel's desk. His laptop sat closed, its sleek silver surface reflecting the fading daylight. I opened it, confronted immediately by the password prompt that hadn't been there 2 weeks ago. I tried the usual suspects: my birthday, his birthday, our anniversary, his childhood dog's name. Nothing worked. I moved to his desk drawer, sliding it open with a soft wooden scrape. Receipts, pens, spare charging cables, a half-empty pack of gum. And beneath them, a small velvet box. My heart stuttered. Jewelry? For me? For her? Inside was a pair of earrings. Small diamonds in a simple setting. Not my style at all. I never wore diamonds. Had specifically asked for a sapphire engagement ring because I found diamonds predictably commercial. But Nora loved diamonds. Had always coveted them, pointed them out in magazines, tried them on at department stores while I waited impatiently. I closed the box and returned it to its hiding place. Then I noticed a corner of paper sticking out from beneath a notebook. I pulled it free, a photograph. Daniel and Nora, arms around each other, standing on a balcony I didn't recognize. Their faces turned toward each other, caught mid-laugh in golden hour light. The casual intimacy of the image struck harder than if it had been explicit. This wasn't just sex. This was connection. The front door opened. I slid the photo back where I'd found it and moved away from the desk. "Hey," Daniel called out, setting down his keys with a metallic clink against the ceramic dish I'd made in a pottery class 2 summers ago. "How was your day?" "Educational," I replied, the word hanging between us like a test he was failing. "And yours?" "Productive." He loosened his tie, a gesture I'd once found endearing. "I'm starving. Should we order in?" We settled on Thai food, the same dishes we always ordered, and ate in front of the television watching a documentary about deep-sea creatures. Beings adapted to extreme pressure, to darkness, to scarcity. "These anglerfish mate for life," said the narrator, as grotesque fish with gaping mouths and bioluminescent lures filled the screen. But it's not romantic. The male literally fuses to the female's body, eventually becoming nothing more than a source of sperm. Daniel laughed uncomfortably. "Nature is wild." I stabbed a piece of tofu with my fork. "At least they're honest about their arrangement." He glanced at me, brow furrowed. "You okay?" "I'm fine," I smiled. "Just tired." End-of-year assessments are coming up. Later, while Daniel showered, I checked his phone. He'd left it charging on the nightstand, face down. Another new development. He'd always been careless with his phone before, leaving it anywhere, screen up, unlocked. Now it was password protected too, but I knew this one. His birth year followed by mine. It opened with a soft click. There they were. Hundreds of text messages between him and Nora. I scrolled through them quickly, catching phrases that burned into my memory. "Can't wait to see you tomorrow. Wish things were simpler. She doesn't understand me like you do, and worst of all, from my sister. We'll figure it out. She'll be okay eventually." I heard the shower turn off and quickly replaced the phone exactly as I'd found it. When Daniel came to bed, I pretended to be asleep, controlling my breathing while my mind raced through every interaction, every dinner party, every coincidental meeting between my husband and my sister over the past 6 months. In the darkness, Daniel's breathing eventually slowed into sleep beside me. I stared at the ceiling, counting the hours by the changing shadows as cars passed below, their headlights briefly illuminating our bedroom wall before sliding away. "Ms. Linden, what happens when people break promises?" Emily asked during morning circle time. We were discussing our classroom community agreements as we did every Thursday. I looked at her earnest face, gap-toothed and serious. "That's a thoughtful question, Emily. When people break promises, trust gets damaged. Like when my dad said he'd come to my birthday but didn't?" A murmur went through the circle. I nodded, choosing my words carefully. Sometimes adults make mistakes or have circumstances that prevent them from keeping their promises. It doesn't mean they don't love you, but it still hurts, she said with the simple clarity of a 7-year-old. Yes, it does still hurt, and it's okay to feel hurt. I looked around the circle. What might help when someone breaks a promise? Hands shot up around me, telling them how you feel, making them promise better next time, never trusting them again, offered Marcus solemnly. I nodded at each suggestion. These are all natural responses. The most important thing is to be honest, with yourself about how you feel and with the other person about what happened. What if they lie about breaking the promise? Asked Zoe, still working on her mystery story. Apparently. Then, I said, meeting her eyes, you need to decide what kind of relationship you want with someone who isn't honest with you. 23 children nodded as though I'd imparted great wisdom, while inside I wondered why I couldn't follow my own advice. That afternoon, I called in sick for Friday, my first sick day in 3 years, and told Daniel I needed to visit my mother for the weekend. He seemed relieved, offering to drive me to the train station. I declined, saying I'd take an Uber. "Give your mom my best," he said as I packed an overnight bag. "I will," I lied, matching his deception with my own. Instead of going to my mother's, I checked into a hotel downtown. Room 714, with its generic artwork and stiff white bedding. I set my phone on the desk and stared at it, rehearsing what I would say. Finally, I typed a message to both of them. "I know about the two of you. I'll be at Ardent Table at 7 p.m. Come together." Then I lay on the hotel bed and closed my eyes, not sleeping, just floating in the liminal space between my old life and whatever came next. At 6:30, I dressed carefully in clothes I'd chosen specifically for this confrontation. A navy blue dress I'd worn to a faculty dinner where I'd received a teaching award, simple pearl earrings my father had given me before he died, low heels that didn't pinch, armor of competence and dignity. Ardent Table was busy for a Friday night. I gave my name to the host, who led me to a table for 3 in the corner. "The rest of your party will be joining soon?" he asked. "Yes," I said, smoothing my napkin across my lap. "They're coming together." I ordered a glass of Sauvignon Blanc and waited, watching the door. They arrived 7 minutes late, entering separately but with synchronized movements that betrayed their togetherness. Daniel spotted me first, his face paling. He touched Nora's elbow lightly, directing her attention to my corner table. They approached slowly, like children caught misbehaving. I took a sip of my wine and gestured to the empty chairs. "Thank you for coming," I said, my teacher voice steady and calm. "Please sit." They sat. Daniel's hands fidgeted with his water glass. Nora's eyes were red-rimmed, her mascara slightly smudged. "Eliza," Daniel started, "we can explain." I held up a hand. "I'm not interested in explanations. I've seen the texts. I found the photo. I know about the flowers. Identical bouquets, one for me, one for her. Efficient." Nora's eyes filled with tears. "We never meant to hurt you." And yet, here we are. I took another sip of wine, its acidity matching the bitterness in my throat. 6 months, from what I can tell? While I was teaching other people's children and grieving the ones we couldn't have. I looked directly at Daniel. Was that part of it? My obsession with getting pregnant? He looked down. It wasn't just one thing. It never is. I turned to my sister. Was it worth it? Betraying the person who taught you to read? Who held your hand at Dad's funeral? Who helped you move 6 times in 4 years? Eliza, please, she whispered. We fell in love. We didn't plan this. Love? I repeated, the word hollow. Well, that makes it better, doesn't it? You didn't just betray me for convenience or boredom. You did it for love. Daniel reached for my hand. I pulled it away. I've made some decisions, I said. I'm moving out. I've already found an apartment. I'll send you the address for legal documents. I turned to Nora. I've told Mom. She suggested you skip Thanksgiving this year. You're being cold, Daniel said, his voice hardening. I laughed, the sound startling even to me. Cold? I'm being composed. There's a difference. Would you prefer hysteria? A public scene? Would that make your betrayal more palatable if I behaved badly? The waiter approached. Are you ready to order? No, I said, standing. They're leaving. The bill for my wine is theirs. I walked out, feeling their eyes on my back, my heels clicking steadily on the hardwood floor. Outside, the spring air was cool on my hot face. I walked 6 blocks before the tears came, and when they did, I let them fall freely, unashamed of my grief. Summer passed in a blur of paperwork and packing. Divorce proceedings initiated. New apartment secured. A 1-bedroom on the 8th floor of a building in a different neighborhood, with large windows and a small balcony where I placed potted herbs and a single chair. I took only what was unequivocally mine: books, clothes, the quilt my grandmother had made, my collection of vintage globes. Daniel didn't fight me on anything. The condo sold quickly, and we split the proceeds as my lawyer advised. My colleagues brought casseroles and offered spare furniture. My mother stayed for 2 weeks, helping me arrange my new space, filling it with small touches of comfort: new tea towels, a better mattress, artwork for bare walls. You're handling this with remarkable grace, she said one evening as we assembled a bookshelf together. I don't feel graceful, I admitted, tightening a screw with more force than necessary. I feel hollow. That's normal. The hollowness fills eventually. She handed me another screw, with other things. School started again in September. New students, new names to memorize, new learning pods to arrange. The rhythm of teaching anchored me when everything else felt unmoored. I volunteered for the after-school program, extending my days until evening, filling the hours that had once been occupied with marriage. In October, I received an email from a former student's mother. Lucia had been in my class 3 years earlier, a bright, artistic child with selective mutism. Her mother and I had worked closely to help Lucia feel comfortable speaking in class. Dear Ms. Linden, I hope this email finds you well. Lucia often speaks of you and the difference you made in her life. I'm writing because I've recently started a support group for women considering single motherhood by choice, whether through adoption, foster care, or assisted reproduction. Given your gift with children, I thought you might be interested in joining us. We meet monthly at the community center. No pressure, of course. Warm regards. Martina Reyes. I stared at the email for a long time before responding with a simple, I'll be there. The support group met in a small room with comfortable chairs arranged in a circle. 8 women of varying ages sat with paper cups of tea or coffee, introducing themselves when I arrived. I'm Eliza, I said, taking the empty seat. I'm an elementary school teacher. I've always wanted to be a mother, but my path has changed recently. Martina squeezed my hand. We all have different stories that brought us here. Over the next few months, I listened to these women share their journeys. Kayla, 41, pursuing IVF with donor sperm after years of dating men who weren't ready for children. Valerie, 37, saving for adoption fees while navigating the complicated application process as a single woman. Ming, 33, preparing to foster to adopt after growing up in the system herself. Their stories resonated with me, especially their determination to create families on their own terms. I began researching options, scheduling consultations, redirecting the energy I'd once poured into saving my marriage. In January, I applied to become a foster parent. The process was rigorous: background checks, home studies, training sessions that spanned weekends. I transformed my small second bedroom from an office into a child's room. with adjustable furniture that could accommodate various ages. "Are you worried about becoming attached and then having to say goodbye?" asked my mother when I showed her the room via video call. "Of course," I said, adjusting the reading lamp by the twin bed. "But these children need stability and care, even if it's temporary. I can provide that." "You always were the strongest of my daughters," she said softly. I didn't feel strong. I felt recalibrated, as though grief had reset my priorities, clarified what mattered. In April, 1 year after discovering the identical flower receipts, I received my first placement. Mia, age 8, needed emergency temporary housing while her grandmother recovered from surgery. She arrived with a small backpack of belongings and wary brown eyes, her hair in neat braids tied with yellow ribbons. "I'm Ms. Linden," I said, kneeling to her eye level. "You can call me Eliza if you prefer." She didn't respond, clutching her backpack straps tightly. "I've made up a room for you. Would you like to see it?" A small nod. I showed her the bedroom, where I'd placed a selection of books on the nightstand and a stuffed elephant on the pillow. "The elephant is optional," I explained. "My students named him Peanut." Mia reached for the elephant, testing its softness between her fingers. "My grandmother is sick," she said finally. "Yes, I know. She's getting better in the hospital, and you'll stay with me until she's well enough to take care of you again." What if she doesn't get better? The directness of children, their ability to ask the hardest questions without hesitation. Then we'll figure out what happens next, together. I sat on the edge of the bed. It's okay to be worried about her. It's okay to be scared about staying with someone new. Mia nodded, still clutching the elephant. "Do you have kids?" "No," I said. "But I teach 2nd grade, so I spend all day with children your age." "Are you married?" I was, not anymore. She considered this information. "My mom left when I was 4. She was sick too, but not like Grandma. Different sick. I'm sorry to hear that. It's okay." "I don't remember her much." She set the elephant carefully against the pillow. "Can I put my clothes in the dresser?" "Of course. This is your room while you're here." As I helped her unpack her meager belongings, I felt something shift within me. Not the hollow filling exactly, but a new awareness of purpose. This child needed me right now, in this moment. And I needed her too, this small person with her direct questions and careful arrangement of limited possessions. Mia stayed for 6 weeks. Her grandmother recovered slowly but steadily from complicated heart surgery. I took Mia to visit her 3 times a week, driving across town to the rehabilitation facility where we'd sit together playing card games or reading aloud while the older woman regained her strength. "You're good with her," Grandma Joyce observed during one visit. "Patient." "She's easy to be patient with," I replied, watching Mia arrange the cards for another round of Go Fish. "She's remarkable." "She's had to be." Joyce adjusted herself in the recliner. "Her mother, my daughter, had problems. Addiction, men, bad choices." I nodded, understanding the unspoken history. "I'm not getting any younger," Joyce continued. "And this heart of mine," she tapped her chest. "The doctor says I need to reduce stress." "One day at a time," I said. "Focus on getting stronger." She studied me with eyes like Mia's, observant, direct. "Would you consider keeping in touch? After she comes home, maybe weekend visits sometimes, to give this old woman a breather." The question surprised me. I'd like that very much if Mia would too. Mia looked up from her cards. I would. And so it began. My unexpected path to a different kind of motherhood. Not the biological child I'd grieved, not the nuclear family I'd planned, but something equally valuable. Something real. After Mia returned to her grandmother, there were other placements. Teresa, a teenage girl who stayed just 3 days before her aunt could take her. Twins James and Jack, age 5, who lived with me for 4 months while their father completed a rehabilitation program. Each child brought their own story, their own needs, their own gifts. And through it all, Mia remained a constant. Weekend visits evolved into regular sleepovers. School break stays, summer adventures. A relationship that defied simple categorization, Not quite mother and daughter, more than teacher and student, a chosen family forged from circumstance. 2 years after the confrontation at Ardent Table, I received a text message from Daniel. I saw you at the farmer's market yesterday with a little girl. You looked happy. I'm glad. I stared at the message, unsure how to respond. Mia had been helping me select apples, insisting on smelling each one before adding it to our basket, making me laugh with her exaggerated sniffing sounds. Thank you, I typed finally. I am happy. Later that evening, as Mia and I made apple crisp in my kitchen, her standing on a step stool to reach the counter, measuring cinnamon with intense concentration, I thought about how life reorganizes itself around loss, how the spaces left by betrayal eventually fill with new connections, new routines, new purpose. Is this enough cinnamon? Mia asked, holding up the measuring spoon for my inspection. I leaned in, pretending to examine it critically. Perfect. You're becoming an expert baker. She beamed, carefully sprinkling the spice over the sliced apples. Grandma says I get that from you. Does she now? I smiled, touched by the attribution of inheritance where none existed biologically. Yep, she says you're teaching me all your tricks. Well, I still have plenty more to share. Mia nodded seriously. Good, because I'm staying until I learn them all. I tucked a stray braid behind her ear, leaving a smudge of flour on her cheek. That might take a very long time. I know, she said, returning to her task with satisfaction. That's the plan. Outside my kitchen window, the city lights were coming on, pinpoints of brightness against the gathering darkness. I watched them appear one by one, each a separate story, each connected in the larger constellation of our shared existence. The pattern beautiful, complex, and entirely unplanned.
And that wraps up today's story. Now we want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments, and let's see how far these stories reach. If this story moved you or gave you chills, give it a like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories. One last thing, rate the story from 1 to 10 in the comments. Your feedback helps us bring you even better ones next time. Thanks for watching. We appreciate you being part of this storytelling journey.